I know me can't sleep. No, wanna go home. I am rich in love, and naturally I'm a pop. Stay with me, 'cause you are my girl, friend now. I found a good woman. I found a good woman. Stronger, and I feel like what it did for me and my family is for us to grow stronger and more together, because I was home. We should try and do an EP or an album. A lot of people wouldn't know, but now I feel like a new artist because I am now independent. I did my last album with my record. I'm trying to find melodies and lyrics, and she got ready for work. When she came out, she was like, "Whoa, you're still up." I'm saying, "Yeah, man, I try to find it. I'm close, but I'm not finding it." And she said, "You want some porridge?" And I said,
What happens when you win everything at 17, only to spend the next decade learning what real success actually costs? What happens when the industry hands you fame on a silver platter, but life hands you responsibilities you never felt ready for? A family, a legacy, a promise to yourself you swore you'd never break. And what happens when the world sees a gentle, humble reggae star, but behind the scenes, that same man is fighting to rewrite generational cycles of poverty, absence, guilt, and emotional survival? This is the story of Romain Virgo, the man who became a Jamaican icon, not because he chased fame, but because he chose family, chose honesty, chose humility, chose to build his career brick by brick while refusing every shortcut the industry dangled in front of him. But before he became the gentleman, before the sold-out Europe tours, before the viral YouTube family empire, before the heartbreaks and the breakthroughs, there was a boy growing up in St. Anne Parish. A boy who didn't even realize he was poor because poverty was so normal it felt like air. Romain was born in Stepney, St. Anne, a place where 4 people sleeping in one bed wasn't unusual. Sometimes 3, sometimes more. A place where the toilet was outside and visible from the street because nobody had indoor plumbing, where the kitchen was in the front yard, and everyone bathed outside in the morning. Romain would stand there washing himself naked in the open air, singing at the top of his lungs, and nobody stared, nobody judged. Everyone lived the same way. When you grow up like that, you don't think about struggle. You think about surviving another day, another week, another season. You think that's just life. His mother worked constantly, sometimes disappearing for days because she was chasing enough money to feed her children. His biological father wasn't present, leaving a wound Romain wouldn't fully understand until adulthood. But the boy did have one gift, a stepfather who stepped in not out of obligation, but out of love. A quiet man who taught him what presence looks like, what responsibility means, how to show up even when it's hard. Music was the one thing that made everything feel bigger than Stepney. Romain sang everywhere, in school, in the yard, in the choir, in class so much that teachers punished him for it. But he couldn't help it. Music felt like destiny. And then, at 17, destiny called. In 2007, Romain entered Digicel Rising Stars, Jamaica's version of American Idol, a national phenomenon. Millions watched, entire households gathered every week, and Romain, the shy kid from Stepney, walked onto that stage and sang like the island had been waiting for him. He didn't just perform, he took the entire competition by storm. He became the youngest winner in the show's history. He won $1 million Jamaican dollars. He gained instant fame, a record deal, a whole new life. But here's what nobody tells you about becoming famous at 17. You don't know how to handle money. You don't know how to handle attention. You don't know how to handle pressure. You don't even know how to handle yourself. With $1 million in the bank, most teenagers would have bought a car, jewelry, clothes, but not Romain. He didn't touch the money, not for a year and a half. Instead, he rode to Kingston every week in his friend's old car to record music. He remembered what it felt like to have nothing, and he never wanted to go back. In 2010, his debut album, Romain Virgo, dropped under VP Records. His sound wasn't hardcore dancehall. It wasn't aggressive reggae. It was lovers rock. Emotional, honest, reflective. Songs like Can't Sleep and Wanna Go Home became instant Caribbean classics because they were real, authentic, written from the soul of a boy who sang to survive before he sang to succeed. More albums followed. The System, 2012. Lovesick, 2014. Lifted, 2015. Each one showed growth. Each one expanded his reach across the Caribbean, the US, Europe, and the UK. But fame brings pressure. And behind the scenes, the industry wanted to mold him, shape him, commercialize him. Take this deal, rebrand your sound, become more marketable, be less you. Labels dangled millions in front of him. But the price was creative ownership. 3 album obligations, loss of control, burnout. Romain watched other artists get crushed by those deals, watched careers dissolve under pressure, watched the machine swallow people he admired. So he did the unthinkable. He waited, he stayed patient, he kept ownership of his craft, and then something even bigger happened. Something deeper, something that changed his life forever. He fell in love with Elizabeth, Liz, his future wife, his greatest partner, his anchor, and everything began to shift. Romain met Elizabeth long before the world would know her as Liz from Virgo Nation. She was bright, honest, grounded, and carried the kind of warmth that made everyone around her feel safe. She was from Montego Bay. Not country, she would insist, even though everyone else jokingly said it was. From the very beginning, their connection felt like something Romain had never experienced. Steady, patient, real. In 2018, after years of growing together, Romain and Liz got married. It wasn't a celebrity spectacle. It wasn't covered by tabloids. It was intimate, filled with family, faith, and gratitude. Exactly the way they wanted. But nothing could prepare them for what came next. In 2019, their world expanded overnight. Twin daughters were born, and everything Romain thought he knew about life flipped upside down. Suddenly, the future didn't feel like fame or money or albums. It felt like responsibility, purpose, love, the kind that shakes you awake at 3 a.m., the kind that changes your priorities with one cry, the kind that makes you want to be the father you never had. Romain had always been careful with decisions, always moved slowly, always protected his career. But when the twins arrived, his entire heart reorganized itself. Music mattered, but family mattered more. Then the world shut down. COVID-19 hit in 2020. Tours were canceled. International shows disappeared. Bookings vanished. Most artists panicked. A year without performances meant a year without income. But for Romain, the lockdown was a blessing he didn't know he needed. For the first time in his adult life, he was home. Every day, every morning, every night. He changed diapers. He cooked meals. He made schedules. He watched the girls grow, their first steps, their first words, their first everything. Romain realized he was becoming the father he always needed, the father he once thought he couldn't be. But the quiet moments of fatherhood also brought reflection, deep, painful reflection. Everything he had lived through, poverty, pressure, fame at 17, industry manipulation, responsibility, love, all of it began pouring out of him creatively. And that's when Romain and Liz did something that would change their connection with the world forever. They started a YouTube channel. The Virgo Nation was born. At first, it was simple. Fun videos, positivity, updates from home, but almost immediately, the audience exploded. Not because people wanted celebrity content, but because they fell in love with the family, the authenticity, the honesty, the joy. Liz's energy, the twins' little personalities, Romain's gentleness, the way they communicated, the way they showed love, the way they showed struggle. Within months, they had tens of thousands of subscribers. Within a few years, they crossed 200,000. Here's the wild part. Romain estimates that 75% of the people who attend his concerts today found him through the vlogs first, not the music. The Virgo Nation wasn't just entertainment, it became a community, a family around a family. But even with all this joy, there was a side of Romain's life the public didn't see. The weight he carried every time he had to leave home for shows, the guilt, the fear of missing moments he couldn't get back. In late 2023, backstage in the UK, someone asked him a simple question. How do you manage traveling while the girls are home? And that's when it happened. Romain broke down crying, not because he was weak, but because he was overwhelmed. Because every time he got on a plane, he felt torn in half. Because he knew Liz carried so much while he was gone. Because he missed milestones, a new word, a new laugh, a new discovery. Because he felt like he was living two lives and trying desperately not to fail at either. Liz would send him videos while he traveled. The girls saying something new, trying something new, growing in ways he wished he could witness in person. And when Romain watched those little moments, he reacted not like a superstar, but like a father. He celebrated each video like it was a world tour victory. Because to him, those moments mattered more than any stage. But just when life felt balanced, just when the twins were growing, just when Virgo Nation was thriving, something else happened. In 2024, Liz and Romain welcomed a son, a baby boy who felt different from the girls, not better, not worse, just different. More demanding, more emotional, crying when anyone left the room, wanting constant closeness. Romain described him as pure life, a different kind of energy, a different kind of blessing, a dream Liz had always prayed for. A son. Now, with 3 children, a growing home, and a YouTube empire, Romain and Liz settled into a community in Kingston where they felt safe, supported, and rooted. a place Romain said he could live for the rest of his life if he needed to, because for the first time, he felt stable. Stable enough to heal, stable enough to grow, stable enough to tell his story honestly. But while Romain was settling into fatherhood, vlogging, and the quiet rhythms of family life, something else was happening. Something deeper, something creative, something transformative. The music inside him was changing. For years, Romain had been the gentle singer, the lover's rock storyteller, the man whose voice carried romance, emotion, and faith. But the more he lived, the more he felt a new truth pulling at him, a truth he could no longer suppress. The result became his most personal body of work yet. The Gentleman, an album rooted in struggle, growth, humility, and love. Released in 2024, The Gentleman wasn't just another project, it was a reflection of his entire life. A mirror held up to everything he had overcome and everything he wished to pass on to his children. Reggae experts even ranked the album among the top reggae releases of the year, calling it Romain's most honest and emotionally grounded work. And the music proved it. The album opened with Been There Before, featuring I-Octane, a track built on a rhythm produced by Ramesh Entertainment. The song wasn't flashy or overproduced. It was real, personal, a confession set to music. The album cover featured a photo of Romain as a schoolboy, wearing pants far too big for him because they were hand-me-downs from his older brother. Anyone else might feel embarrassed by that image, but Romain, he felt pride, and because that photo wasn't a reminder of shame. It was a reminder of resilience, a reminder of the community he came from, a reminder of the struggles that shaped him. Growing up poor wasn't a tragedy, it was a foundation. Then came Good Woman, the song that became a love letter, not only to Liz, but to every woman who pours into her family without expecting applause. It was 4 a.m. Romain was exhausted. The melodies weren't coming. The lyrics felt forced. He was losing patience in the studio. Then Liz, rushing out the door for work, came over, looked at him, and instead of hurrying, asked, "Do you want porridge before I go?" That one moment broke him open. Romain stopped, stared at her, and felt something overwhelm him. Gratitude. Because even in chaos, even in exhaustion, even in stress, she thought of him first. And the song wrote itself. Verses poured out about her morning kisses, her emotional strength, her calls to check on him, the porridge that became a symbol of everyday love. Not glamorous, not dramatic, just real. The Gentleman also included collaborations that held deep meaning. Jesse Royal's feature on Switch You On wasn't just a musical choice. Jesse was someone who guided Romain, reasoned with him, encouraged him, a big brother in an industry full of egos. Keznamdi's feature on You Must Pay was equally personal. Back in 2010, when Romain had barely 3 songs to his name, Keznamdi was one of the first artists to bring him on tour in the US. Even when Keznamdi only had a 30-minute set, he insisted on giving Romain at least 1 song. That generosity stayed with him forever. But behind the scenes, a major shift was happening. After more than 14 years with VP Records, Romain finally became an independent artist. No label, no machine, no obligations. This wasn't a breakup, this was evolution. He wanted to release music on his terms, the same way he had lived his life from the beginning. No rush deadlines, no attempts to chase trends, no pressure to make albums that didn't reflect his truth. Being independent meant starting from scratch. New distribution, new marketing, and new strategy, new freedom. With his longtime collaborator and manager Nico, Romain began preparing new music. Possibly an EP, possibly a full album. One early single, Two Phase, shot by Ramesh Entertainment, came out on a juggling rhythm featuring Terrace Riley, Christopher Martin, and 3 promising new artists. Romain hoped this rhythm could revive a dying art form, the juggling culture that once defined reggae but had faded in the digital era. But why did all of this matter? Because Romain wasn't just making music anymore. He was protecting the culture. He was uplifting younger artists. He was honoring the community that raised him. As of 2025, Romain's estimated net worth reached roughly $3 million. Modest compared to global stars, but monumental for a reggae artist who refused to compromise his authenticity. His timeless songs, Can't Sleep, Wanna Go Home, I Am Rich in Love, now Good Woman, cemented him as one of the most respected voices in modern reggae. But here's the part the world wasn't ready for. The part that brought fans to tears. The part that showed the deepest wound in Romain's heart. In a series of recent interviews, Romain revealed the complicated truth about his biological father. They talk now, they have a relationship. But every conversation returns to the same painful loop. His father apologizing, explaining, questioning, carrying guilt like a weight he can't put down. And every time, Romain has to help him breathe through it. I understand. We can't change the past. We have to move forward. But his father keeps slipping back into regret. And through these conversations, Romain learns something profound. Parents are human. Parents fail. Parents repeat cycles. Parents hand down their brokenness without meaning to. And now, right now, Romain is determined to be the one who breaks the cycle. For his daughters, for his son, for the man he never got to see growing up. Today, Romain's life is simple, beautifully simple. He creates music. He spends time with his family. He performs when the moment calls for it. And through it all, he stays grounded in the values that shaped him. His days start with the laughter of 3 children, twin daughters, and a son who carries a different kind of energy, a spark that Romain describes as pure life. The boy is more demanding, more attached, quick to cry when someone leaves the room. But there's something in his eyes that feels familiar, something that reminds Romain of his own journey. Sensitive, aware, yearning for connection. Liz, always the steady force in the home, radiates joy every time she looks at their son. She always wanted a boy, and now seeing her with him has added a new layer of beauty to their family story. 3 kids, a household full of noise, love, routines, chaos, and growth. It's everything Romain prayed for without ever saying it aloud. They live in a quiet community in Kingston, a house they bought during the pandemic when the world slowed down enough for them to breathe, think, and choose a future rooted in stability. Romain often says he could live there for the rest of his life, not because it's extravagant, but because it feels safe, because it feels like home. He's a practical man, always thinking ahead, planning for worst-case scenarios, making sure his family will be secure no matter what. Fame isn't a guarantee. Music isn't predictable. But home, family, that's the foundation he refuses to gamble with. Even with the simplicity of family life, the music never stopped. Romain continued writing, recording, releasing, and performing. But what changed, what truly shifted, was the why. He no longer made music to prove he belonged, or to chase validation, or to keep up with an industry that often demands more than it gives. Now he makes music because it's part of him, a truth he carries, a gift he wants to share on his own terms. Through it all, he stays deeply connected to fans. He posts updates on social media, uploads vlogs, interacts with the Virgo Nation, and he never forgets the people who helped him along the way, not just colleagues, but chosen family. Friends like Taris and Christopher Martin, who will pick him up from the airport at midnight without hesitation. Friends like Kim, Omi, Seshin, Mara, and Timan. People who show up not because he's Romain Virgo the artist, but because he's Romain, the human being. Because when you live far from your blood family, the people who choose to love you become your support system. But even with all the success he has earned, even with the respect, the international following, the millions of streams, the sold-out shows, Romain approaches every performance with humility. Before he walks on stage, he assumes nobody knows him. Not out of insecurity, but out of respect. Because if he expects everyone to recognize his songs and they don't respond the way he hopes, he'll feel disappointed. But if he assumes the crowd is hearing him for the first time, he gives everything 150%, and anything beyond that becomes a blessing. It's the perfect representation of who he is. Someone who refuses entitlement. Someone who chooses humility over ego. Someone who understands that gratitude is more powerful than fame. And through vlogging, something even deeper emerged. When people see the real you, the vulnerabilities, the struggles, the joy, the parenting fails, the family wins, the connection becomes unbreakable. That's why the Virgo Nation grew. Not because of glossy music videos or carefully curated PR, but because real recognizes real. Fans watch Romain renovate his home, celebrate birthdays, pray with his family, cry backstage, laugh with Liz, discipline the girls, sing randomly in the kitchen, and navigate the chaos of everyday life. They saw themselves in him, and that authenticity built a bond no marketing campaign can manufacture. Today, Romain isn't chasing fame. He's chasing peace. He's chasing purpose. He's chasing the chance to break generational cycles so his children can grow without the wounds he carried. He's teaching them what he learned the hard way, that material things don't define you, that humility makes you stronger, that seeing others as equal doesn't make you small, that every human being deserves respect and dignity no matter their status. These are the values he wants to leave behind. Not awards, not statistics, not viral moments, values. As of now, Romain is working on a new single titled Finally, a project fans have already embraced with excitement, and whispers in the reggae community suggest that a full new album might be on the way. If that's true, then the next chapter of Romain's story is just beginning. But whether he drops an album tomorrow or next year, one thing remains certain. Romain Virgo has grown from a poor boy in St. Anne who sang outside in the open air to a global reggae gentleman who leads with love, humility, and truth. And if you're excited for his next musical chapter, comment down below. We're ready, Mr. Virgo. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Romain Virgo's journey, his struggles, his growth, his family, and the legacy he's building, make sure you don't leave without joining the community. Hit that like button and subscribe to Hoodline Gossip and turn on notifications so you never miss a story about the artists who inspire us, move us, and remind us what real humanity looks like. Share this video with someone who loves reggae, someone who believes in family, or someone who needs to hear a story about staying true to who you are, no matter the cost. This is Hoodline Gossip, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.